Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by sportshoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Okay, welcome back to another episode. We are here again in episode 2, of season 4. Matt, how's it going, mate? You've just been cheating on us. You've just been on another podcast, I hear.
Oh boy, I'm back to back podcasting this morning. No, actually, cool kind of project coming up. Going to be hosting For the Kudos marathon series with Marc and Phil, which I think is for Patreon listeners. And basically just going to once a week catch up with Marc and Phil, talk about training, but also talk about their preparations and just life in general. Obviously, Phil's doing Seville Marathon, and that's like a record turnaround, if you like, off the back of Valencia. Marc's confirmed he's doing the London Marathon. Got some interesting gossip already for you, Lum, that we can share with these listeners. Marc's new coach is Chris Jones. Confirmed. And I think it's pretty much week 1 of working with him. Obviously, he was being advised by him. So, and Chris, coached Clara to 225 already, last year. So he's in safe hands. And Chris isn't someone who has many athletes either, and but really knows his stuff. We've spoken to him numerous times. We know him pretty well. He's quite science based as well, which I think Marc will probably enjoy, whilst preparing for his debut marathon. So I'm going to be hosting, For the Kudos. And if you haven't heard their podcast before, go listen, because great podcast. Brett Robinson hosts it with Riley Wolf and Joel Tobin White, and they just do a great job at, talking about running, but also just being real and authentic and talking about life and the kind of struggles of being a professional runner, but also the highs and the lows and everything around that as well. So if you like an Aussie accent, go tune into their podcast. But we've got a lot to discuss ourselves, Lam.
Yeah, we have, don't we? Like, there's been a few results recently already, kind of in the year, that we'll get into. Then obviously we've got our usual guest portion in this episode as well. So in this, FitzGerald will be coming up later in the episode in around 10 minutes or so. Matt and I can keep our chit chat to a minimum, and then we'll preview some of the kind of upcoming events too. But let's get into Ribble Valley, because last week we kind of previewed it. Matt, you ran as well. So what was it like kind of on the course, mate? And then we'll talk about the guys at the front.
Mate, to be fair, that was my debut 10K. I'll just get my excuses out. I've been ill. It was Christmas, blah, blah, blah. But actually, I really loved it. I didn't think I would enjoy a road 10K, to be honest with you. Road 5Ks are really hard as well. But me personally, they're hard to enjoy. But course was awesome. Obviously a lot of our listeners have done Ribble Valley before. Those who have never done it, highly recommend it. Go and do it, because you've just got like country lanes, high hedges either side. You're just rolling along this country lane. The footing is really, really good. Like, the road surface is brilliant. The only, I guess, drawback to the course is it's just always undulating. Like, I was trying to think, is there even a flat section on the course? Not that the hills are steep, but it's just either up or down. And I feel like if you do know the course quite well, you can actually run pretty quick on there, because you can kind of crush an uphill knowing that you've got a kilometer stretch, which is downhill the other side. I didn't have that luxury. I was being cautious, mate. But yeah, it is. There are some long downhill sections. Like, I think there was from 7 to 9Ks virtually all downhill late on in the race, which I think at that point in a 10K, if you know that's coming, you can really use that to your advantage and lay down a fast section there. But yeah, 10 out of 10 course organization, 10 out of 10. Yeah, no complaints. Absolutely loved it for debut 10K. I think I'll be coming back or going back there in 2024 as well. Yeah, but let's talk.
Chasing the Sunday podcast host record, aren't you, mate?
Well, yeah. I ran 33:17. I don't know how I ran that, by the way, because on my watch I had 33:26. I stopped and started it literally as I crossed the line.
Take it, mate. Take it.
I'll take it. I was chuffed to see an extra 10 seconds on the results, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm still off Lum's Sunday Podcast 10K record. So I'll probably go for that. I was going to do Chepstow 10K, but that's been cancelled. That was at the end of Jan. That's usually quite a fast
Was that
one.
Speedway? Yeah.
Speedway 10K, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
is the
That's
official
that's
name.
that's where I ran my PB a few years ago now. So yeah, mate, you'll have
Well,
to.
you're lucky they've cancelled it because I think another 4 weeks training, I'd be sub 32, no problem.
Yeah, okay. We'll see. We'll see.
Anyway, pointy
Um,
end of Ribble Valley, the end of
yeah,
that
yeah.
round.
We'll get to the interesting end rather than us two kind of chugging around. Um, Marc Scott and Emile Cairess, great to see kind of probably what your two best road athletes over this distance in the UK right now. Just trying to make sure I'm not kind of slating anyone, but I think that's pretty fair to say. 28:47, 28:52. Obviously, Emile's been injured. Marc's been making some changes. But good to see them kind of having a bit of a race up front.
Mate, yeah, those two just went off. I think Marc was always doing this. Emile played the Canny Emile game, and he literally showed up on the day, and everyone was like, "Well, people were kind of whispering, Emile's here. I've seen Emile. Emile's warming up. It was one of those." But yeah, he kind of rocked up, and those two just went toe to toe. I feel like Marc has a pretty good record against Emile now. Kind of outkicked him in the summer over the 3K. That one, you know,
I do
stick.
think he should be though. I think people, obviously Emile's a phenomenal athlete, but I do think people start thinking, oh,
The
it
problem
should
is
be
though,
closer than it is because like you
yeah,
look at Marc's track times, Marc should be like sweeping the floor of Emile, even though it's on the road.
I
It
guess.
is only 10K.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess you're right there. I think I look at it from an angle of Marc seems to just beat him in the same way every time now. If Mill's in a race, Marc goes, I'm just gonna outkick the guy. And Marc's confident he can outkick him. And I think Emile just almost knows what's gonna happen. If you go back and watch the race though, because Emile gave it a good go. It looked like he
Mm.
almost broke. Marc kind of went for it with about 800 to go, 600 to go. Emile, that small gap opened up, the biggest that opened up in the race because they were side by side the whole way. And they were going back and forth. It was a good watch. And then Emile sort of came back at Marc, went past him up the final hill, and it looked like that was going to be it. But then Marc, being Marc, just went as soon as he got on the flat. He went, and this is interesting because obviously we had Barnacle on last week talking about kick finishes and stuff, and he even highlighted he was like, to be honest, sprint finishes are mostly mental, unless you're kind of on a track and you physically,
Mm.
lactics flooding you. We've seen that, but in that sort of setting with those guys, I do kind of understand what Barnacle is saying. Like, they both must be tired. They're both very similar athletes, but Emile, he's been done a few times by Marc now, so I think that will frustrate him, and I think obviously it will please Marc.
Yeah, for sure. But I think if you take that race to 10 miles even, um, it's a different story.
The
I'm not
big
saying
thing
I
is,
don't not saying I don't
yeah,
think Mark's going to run well like over the longer distances. I think he will. I mean, he's got all the tools necessary to kind of be in with a shot, like making that
mm,
sort of jump. But
mm.
I do think Emile now is very much a seasoned, kind of seasoned athlete on the roads like, over those longer distances. Not necessarily in terms of the races he's done, but definitely in terms of the training that he's been doing.
Yeah. I think the big thing is it's good to see them both because Emil's obviously had a little niggle and stuff pre-Christmas, and Marc's been coming back up as well, building himself back up. So it's good to see them both out racing and pretty fit. Like given Ribble Valley, given it was New Year's Eve, coming off the festive period, could probably
I don't think
safely.
them two have a festive period, mate.
Yes.
Definitely Emile doesn't. I haven't spoken to him when he spoke about kind of. He admitted himself in the podcast that he has no balance. It's all running. So
Mate, that is true. I think our festive period is a little bit different to their festive period.
yeah. So, but yeah, and also I think great to see them coming out and just racing what is a local race. Like we often see athletes, they get to their level and then they stop doing these races. They actually think, oh well, I may as well go run abroad. Like obviously Valencia's coming up. I'm not saying they're not doing that as well. I'm not sure what their plans are, but there's plenty of other races in kind of sunnier locations, let's say,
Mm.
that could be
Well, mate,
available to these guys.
same weekend, same day. They had that 10K go down, San Silvestre 10K. I think it's in Madrid. Aragao runs 27:15. I mean, Scott Beattie ran 27:58, for third. However, disclaimer, I think it was downhill that course. I think I was reading a few articles, looking on Twitter and whatnot. I think that course is actually illegal. And it is a downhill course.
The results
So
up yet? For
the results are
because
up. Yeah, the results are up. Yeah, I mean, our guy wanted 27:15. Like I said, I think he ran
no, but I
26.
mean, are they saying downhill on the results, or is it just a kind
Oh, good point.
course?
I haven't checked that, but
Okay,
I do know there's quite a lot of downhill in that
yeah.
course. So I think the results are slightly skewed, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's one example of a fast 10K happening that same day. So it was good to see the lads up at Ribble Valley. Let's just quickly go through the women's side. Jess Jards, she runs 52:50 last year. I was looking, she ran
32.50.
32:50, sorry. Last year she ran 31:19.
Mm.
Obviously had an incredible year, transition that into the summer. Should we be a little bit worried, like minute and a half slower than what you ran? We just don't know where she's at in her training. She may not have even taken it that seriously, and just got a tempo run done. But she went on.
Yeah, I think kind of. I was going to say knowing Jess Judd. I don't know Jess Judd, but from kind of watching her as an athlete for years, obviously I've had her on the podcast. I don't think she doesn't appear to be someone who will go into races wanting to tempo. I know she's kind of gone into races under heavy training stress before. But I don't think she's gone in there trying to kind of do a measured effort rather than race. I think she's very much the
Mm,
kind of athlete who goes out there and gives it her all. Um, should we be worried? I think yes and no, because I think it's almost, is it not about time that Jess had a little bit of a blip in a way? I think all athletes
mm,
have a bit of kind of like a 2, 3 months period maybe where they're not quite racing at their best. And I think if you kind of look at her results over the past few years, she's been pretty consistent and phenomenal for
mm.
quite a few years now. And so maybe it's actually just like she, not that she needs a blip, but like it just happens, and perhaps we probably shouldn't be worried about it.
Yeah, and I guess it's going to allow her to build up into Paris as well,
Mm.
isn't it, over the next few months? So yeah, it's probably fair to say. I think we'll just keep an eye on any other races she's doing. Just a few more results, Lam. I mean, Derek Griffiths, can we chuck him back in the marathon equation? Yeah, might be getting way too ahead of ourselves, but he's actually getting back to seriously. He did a local 5 miler in Wales. I don't even know the name of I forgot the name of the race in the town, but 22:29 for 5 miles, which is bang on 4:30 mile pace, which is low 28-minute 10K pace. So clearly in reasonable shape. So I'll be interested to see because that is someone who has had a rough time. And he's like kind of building back up finally. So let's see.
Yeah, and also I think what's interesting with Derek Griffiths and when we spoke to him, I think it was the ASICS Gel Nimbus launch event last year. We kind of spoke to him
12
about,
months ago.
yeah, about the about kind of prepping for the marathon, and he was saying that one of kind of his issues that he's been struggling with in recent years was getting that sort of 10K pace back under his legs. He was going into marathon build-ups and he was running sort of like a 29:30, 29:45 10K, then getting some miles in and then approaching a marathon. And that's fine. Like you don't need to run the marathon any
Mm,
quicker than that. But that was almost a bit of an issue where he was like, if I can get kind of back towards my sort of 10K best and then attack a sort of marathon block, he's able to be in a really good stead. So like you say, if he's able to crank out that sort of pace for a 5 miler, you're talking like a pretty decent 10K there as well. Then you talk about going into a marathon block, building up and doing the miles like we know he can. He can slog
mm,
those out all day. Yeah, we might see a Derry Griffiths that gets back to your sort of your 209, 210 marathon.
mm, which would be good. Throw him in the equation for these spring marathons coming up. Couple more results. Barcelona 5K women's world record broken. Beatrice Chebet. If you're unfamiliar with the name, well, she ran 14:12 by the way, which is just obscene. I mean,
Mm.
what were they running on the track? Kipyego ran 14:05. Sege ran that just
14
truly,
flat, yeah.
yeah, truly phenomenal 14 flat at the end of the season. But I mean, Chebet was third at the World Champs in the 5K, World Cross Country Champion. So she's a serious athlete. She's kind of I guess, yeah, behind Kipyego and Segai, she's pretty much the next best. So yeah, lightning quick world record went down in the 5K. Katie Snowden actually, when I was browsing the results, she ran 15:23 for a road 5K. So that's not too bad. She's wintering well. And the men's is won by Dominic Labalu. 13:12 European record as well. So a few records went down in that, and that was in Barcelona, that 5K. But let's turn our attention to this week's guests, Ines FitzGerald, European cross country champion. Still got a couple more years to go in that under 20 age group, and I was super excited because she's already had a lot of hype and stuff as well, hasn't she?
Yeah, 100%. Someone that at the age of just 17, she's already sort of talked about in the media, and not just for her running, for kind of things that happen off the track as well. And I think to have that at 17 is an immense amount of pressure. And we obviously spoke to her, and we'll let her kind of talk through some of that, but also some of her brilliant performances as well. Enjoy the episode. Ines, first off, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on. How was your Christmas and New Year, first of all?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've just been at home, had quite a low key, just saw some family. Haven't really been out, just seen friends and family. Yeah, but yeah, really good time.
Yeah, and where's home for you? Like, whereabouts are you staying over Christmas?
So I'm based in like East Devon, near Exeter. So that's where I go to school. My sister's come back from uni. And my family actually live really close. So yeah, meeting up with them and whilst training at the same time. So yeah, it's been nice.
Very busy. I have to ask, how have you recovered off, being crowned a newly crowned European cross country champion? What's December look like for you?
Yeah, it's been really good. Slightly surreal, I think. The week coming off, I was kind of like on a bit of a high. I had to go back into school before Christmas. But it was nice to see everyone, and yeah, lots of congratulations. But yeah, trying to meet up with people over Christmas, and I went down to the park run. It was nice to see everyone down there. But obviously training continues. Had a bit of a week off. But yeah, back to it now, really.
Yeah, I'm sure it must feel quite surreal, kind of going from that high of Eurocross, then going into something like school. Do you feel like pressure at school, or do you get a lot of attention, or is it something you're used to now?
I think people like find it quite amazing, which is nice because so I get lots of questions. But like people are just interested and like they want to support me, whatever. So it's just nice to be around like my friends and people who just like want to show their support, but actually don't really know much about it. So it's quite nice, like being able to like tell them about how athletics works, as well as like having them like there to support me as well.
Are you inspiring your friends? Are your friends getting into running because of you?
I think if anything, they're like leaning away from running, but no, they do. Like all my friends are quite active anyway, so we like play sport together at school, and we always have done. So yeah, it's nice to like be in an environment where other people kind of like understand sport, even if they're doing like football and hockey and stuff. It's nice to be around people who are kind of understanding. They know what training's like.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, look, we really want to get to know you a little bit in this on this podcast, and hopefully give a bit of background to listeners as well. And that starts with what year's 2020. You finish 176th at the English Schools Cross Country Champs as a junior girl. You then go into lockdown. In 2021, you do nothing but park runs. But in 2022, you earn your first GB vest at the first attempt, I believe, and then you go on to come fourth at the European Cross Country Championships. What's happened in those few years? I mean, you must have had a growth spurt, I presume. But what else kind of happened beyond, physical changes?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like we come back from English schools. It was that March time, and then we literally suddenly went into lockdown. And going into like the English schools environment, it was like completely new to me. I was like, what's going on? Like, what even is a warm up? Like, I didn't know anything about running at all. I literally rocked up. I probably ran max like once every 2 weeks before going to English school. So that was kind of like a really new experience. And it was just like quite eye-opening to be in an environment where I'd never like been around runners before really at all. And then like suddenly like we all stayed in a hotel, like the Devon team. So I was like around people like a couple of girls who were like up there in the top 10. And it was like amazing to watch them and how they actually like prepared for like the race and everything. And I was like, what is everyone doing? Like I was completely oblivious to like how running worked at all. And then I think coming back from that and then going straight into lockdown, it made me think about like potentially like it's something I could get into. Like I'd always enjoyed running and being active, and then because like we went into lockdown, we couldn't really do much else. It was like, well, I can run to keep fit, and that's probably a good thing. And my sister would always run like probably once or twice a week, so I started going out with her, and then I was just like enjoying it more and more, and it became kind of like a thing I do. Like I get my schoolwork done at home, and then I'd like go out for a run in the afternoon. It was kind of like I did it for enjoyment, and then it kind of just like spiraled, and I just like kept running really most days. And then I did a few park runs once I got back to school, kind of like after lockdown. My teachers were like, you can run, like because we started doing like cross country stuff at school a bit, and they were like, you can run, you should like get to a club. And I kept ignoring them. I was like, no, I'm not going to a club. There's no way my dad's driving me 45 minutes to go to a club. So I was like, okay, I'll do some park runs. And then it kind of like took off from there, really. I got in, one of the Devon like team managers got in contact with Gavin and Joe Pavey, and said like, and it's just like got potential, but like no one's coaching her. She doesn't know what she's doing. And then from there, since I've been with them, it's kind of like took off. I've like learned like what a session is. Like that was like completely new to me when I first like joined them, and now I session twice a week with Gav and Joe, which is really good. And I'm really lucky to have like kind of fallen into a really great setup at like in Exeter. So I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to kind of mention. Were you aware of kind of how good Joe was as an athlete herself when you kind of just found yourself in that group, or was it kind of new to you as you kind of joined and got settled in?
I didn't have a clue like who they were in the first place. Like the lady at Parkrun who got me in contact was like, oh yeah, Gavin and Joe are interested. Do you want to meet them at like one of the local races? And I was like, yeah, sure. But I didn't have a clue who they were. And it was kind of like meeting them for the first time. And then like I went away and then like looked them up, and I was like, oh my God, like Joe's an Olympian. Like what's going on here? So that was quite funny. But really blessed to be with them now.
And then I guess that was a bit of a no-brainer for you once you'd figured out who they were and you'd had that initial meeting. What did the relationship look like after that? Did you just start going down the club? How did it form into what it is now?
Yeah, I think, Gav was like really keen on doing things really slowly, because obviously I'd only just been running like easy, like I don't know, 5 days a week, 5 or 6 days a week beforehand. So he wasn't like, we can't just jump into session straight away, but we can do a few like bits and pieces on the grass, kind of like get you into things and like get your body. So it's like progressing slowly. But I started going to the sessions kind of like once a week. My dad was still quite reluctant to drive me to Exeter because it's like 40 minutes. But I think, gradually we just did like a bit more and more now. And then I started doing like two sessions a week. And then, that's kind of where we are now.
Wow. But then, in 2022, you had a bit of a breakout season. And by that November, you won Liverpool Cross and you're off to the European Juniors and fighting for a medal as well. So there must have been a point where, you started doing these little sessions. Did Gavin sort of say, look, you're really good? Or did you just kind of start to feel that and you were almost unbeaten for pretty much the whole of 2022 and pretty much the whole of 2023 as well?
Yeah, I think because I spent so long like running by myself and not really running with people who were like my ability, I didn't really know kind of where I was. And Gavin's quite keen on keeping his cards close to his chest. So when we're at a session, he'll be like, oh yeah, that was good. Like he won't be like, oh my God, that's amazing, you're going to run so fast. Like you're like, there's always stuff to work on. And I never like I don't always get like the I don't know, the kind of positivity back sometimes. So I'm like, I think I was kind of at the time a bit unsure, and I wasn't really sure about how like the whole running like circuit worked with races and things. So I didn't really know how I was going to run and how I was going to perform. So I think it was all quite a bit of a shock. But now I look back, I'm like, oh my God, how did I do that? Like, I just like suddenly came onto the scene and managed to like run pretty quick. So I don't really know.
Yeah, wow. With that, was there I guess there must have been a period where you felt kind of no pressure at all to perform well because you kind of come from that area where you didn't really know what was going to happen. You've now transitioned to somewhere where, like Matt said, you're pretty much unbeaten. How's it been kind of navigating that transition from being someone who just did a few park runs or lots of park runs and then kind of actually happened to run quick to being the one who's expected to run quick now?
Yeah, I think I kind of like wish I was in that situation like at every race, like no pressure. If like I was kind of like the underdog, then it would be like so much nicer sometimes. But I think that was good for me. Too much pressure, too young, I think would have like made me like, I don't know, maybe not love the sport as much. But now I kind of like, because I didn't have so much pressure then, I'm kind of used to like not putting too much pressure on myself either. So when I go into races now, I'm kind of like, I know how to deal with the pressure and I don't feel as nervous as like I think I could have done if like racing had been like something I'd done a bit more of at an early age.
Did you get any negative feedback during that time when you burst onto the scene and you were smashing it? I mean, obviously it's very positive for yourself, but you know, it's quite a small sport, isn't it? And sometimes you do receive negative feedback. I was just interested to hear if you had any sort of, I don't know, people comment on you or, you know, anything like that during that time.
I don't think so. I think quite a lot of people were just like shocked. They were like, where's she come from kind of thing. But then I felt like because there was the like pandemic and stuff, like everything kind of went quiet for quite a while. So I don't know. I don't feel like it was like as shocking maybe as if I just like come out of completely nowhere without the like COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And so what does your training look like now in this? Because you mentioned how Gav kind of wanted to keep it really slow and it's progressed to sort of that 2 sessions a week, stuff like that. What does kind of a typical training week look like for you now as a European champion?
Yeah, so kind of Monday easy, and then Tuesday I do a track session. Wednesday's kind of easy. Thursday I do like a short 10-15 minute tempo with like easy bit at the beginning and end. And then Friday's off, and then Saturday's usually a session again, either on the grass. Well, we try and do it on the grass all the time, really, but we mix it up in a bit of track in the summer. And then Sunday, a bit of a longer run. But that's kind of like only pushed up this autumn kind of thing. The longer run on the Sunday, we tried to like keep everything just like as it was kind of thing. All the runs were kind of the same length, and then this autumn we tried to push that up a little bit to try and push the volume up in the autumn to see like get ready for kind of like next track season.
What do you prefer, cross country or track at the moment?
I don't know. I love the track, and I think that's kind of what I prefer, but also like I've shown my strengths on the cross country, and I know that like I have the ability to like run in the mud and on the grass. So I don't know. I think balancing the two. And then I did an indoor race as well, and I loved that. I was like, I hate indoors. I was adamant I hated indoors. And then I went and did the race, and I was like, oh my God, I love it. I was like, I want to do another one. So I'm like hooked on that now as well. So a bit of everything.
And one thing I just, wanted to talk about was you obviously declined to go to a few championships. That's widely documented, World Cross and European Juniors as well. But in a weird way, do you see that as a little bit of a blessing? Like, I think you've got another 3 years in this under 20 age group, or at least 2 years left. At the time, you had 4 or 3 years in the under 20 age group. So is that maybe it's a good thing, an example of you just not rushing things? You know that, well, you hope there's more opportunities to come as well. And does that keep you hungry? The fact that you haven't been to a World Cross, presume you're looking to go to this year's World Cross, and again you haven't been to a Euro Juniors on the track, and you're going to kind of be hungry the next year or two to go to one. I think it's next year, isn't it, the next Euro Juniors?
Yeah, no, I think I'm definitely am, and I'm like I just really want to go now. I'm like more desperate than ever. And I think not going to the World Cross was kind of like we were kind of umming and ahhing about it anyway. It was like, is it worth going away to Australia, having like maybe like you're going to end up having to have like a week or 2 weeks off afterwards because of like the travel and everything, and the stress. And I think because I hadn't really traveled that far before, it was going to be quite a lot of stress on my body anyway. We weren't really prepared, like, because it obviously was boiling hot and stuff. So like race wise, like I wasn't necessarily going to get the most out of it. I was in really good shape and I could have probably ran pretty well, but like we were kind of balancing whether the risk was worth it anyway. I think Euros on the track last summer was like a bit more like I was like watching it back, and it was quite hard to watch back. I was like,
Right.
I could have been there, I could have been up in the medals, and I think that was like the trickiest champs not to go to. But yeah, like as you said, I'm just hungrier than ever to like go now, and hopefully the next when I do go, I can really show off what I've got. And yeah, it'll be like worth it.
I think as well, a lot of people don't appreciate you were 16. Were you 16 at the time of the World Cross Country as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that is incredibly young to be traveling all that way and going to World Cross. You got hopefully many years ahead of you as well. But yeah, I was going to say I can imagine it being very hard to watch Euro Juniors. You would have almost been kicking yourself. So do you think you will, now you're a high profile athlete, you'll kind of consider these decisions a little bit more, and you'll find it a lot harder to turn things down going forward?
Yeah, I think there's been a bit of like friction as well with like my family and what they want me to do, and I think until I'm 18 and it's like completely my decision, I'm going to find it tricky to go to these champs anyway. Obviously with like consent from parents and stuff, that's going to be tricky to get, I think. But yeah, when I'm 18 and it's like fully my decision, it'll be like on me to decide completely whether I go. And I want to go to these champs. That's what I want to do. I'm not in it. I'm not running just to like run in the UK every time. But it's about balancing that, and then like speaking out about things I care about as well. But it doesn't mean I can't go to the champs anyway.
Yeah, 100%. How do kind of Gavin and Joe help you kind of manage some of these situations, like the planning around training and races and the travel and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Gav's really supportive. He's like, just like do whatever you want to do. Like, if you don't want to go to a race, that's fine. We can like fit things around it. And if you want to go, that's fine. We can fit things around that as well. He's just like, he's like completely open. He's like, just whatever you want to do. It's like, it's your career. You can choose how you want to navigate it, and he'll just support me whatever, which is really good.
Yeah, brilliant. And in terms of kind of what's next for you, because obviously you're 17 right now, is that right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of like at an age, a lot of athletes who probably more the ones who kind of maybe haven't had as much success as you have, but particularly the ones you have as well. You're kind of at that decision where actually what's going to be next for you in terms of the next 3 years, because obviously university's coming up. Obviously, I'm sure you've had kind of offers to go to America and things like that, but you obviously already kind of got some involvement with Nike as well. So do you know what you're going to be doing for the next sort of kind of 3 years, or is it still kind of deciding what happens and letting it unfold?
I think I'm like trying to figure it all out at the moment, and I'm like got my A levels like coming up, so I'm like juggling that as well. But yeah, I'm looking to go to uni, not in the US. I don't think it was kind of like, although it's like such an amazing offer, I was like, I'm not ready to live like that far away from home. So yeah, uni. I'm going to uni hopefully. I've applied Birmingham, Loughborough, and then we'll just see what happens. I'm not really sure where I'm going to go yet. But yeah, I'm excited to be like in a more of like a kind of a training environment around other people, and kind of like living amongst athletes. I think that would be really fun. And that's kind of like something I'm looking forward to. And then yeah, hopefully sort the sponsorship thing out this year, get that all sorted. So I've kind of like, yeah, got myself a bit of a safety net, so I can just keep training and not have to worry about that kind of thing in the next 2 years. So
I suppose this, decisions of your future are a lot harder, the level you're at, in comparison to, people slightly, slower than you. I guess it's a little bit easier for them to decide these things, that are going to impact their career going forward. I guess when you started out, 3 years ago, did you ever think you'd be in this position, talking to sponsors, talking to brands, and negotiating this part of your life?
Definitely not. And I didn't really know how much it involved either. The amount of conversations I've had, and like the amount, different, like people saying different things, and then me having to balance everything, kind of like in my mind, what do I want to do? What's best for me? Like, but what do I want to get out of it, kind of thing. I never really knew these decisions had to be made, and I didn't really know like what the sport could offer either. So yeah, I've been really grateful for that.
And I suppose that's where having people like Joe and Gavin in your corner is such an asset.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like so grateful for the fact that they've been through it all before. They know everything. They know like what's right, what's wrong, what mistakes not to make. Yeah, I think without them, I don't know how I'd manage.
Yeah, for sure. And they must help in kind of the high pressure race situations as well. And that's one thing we've not really kind of dived into massively as well. How do you actually approach like some of these big races, like the Eurocross that you went and won, like going in there, like kind of dominating in Liverpool? How do you then approach the race knowing that it's obviously you're in a great position, but it's still going to be a much bigger challenge than what you faced on a domestic circuit?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because like however much somebody says something to me, like going into Euros last year, I executed the race completely wrong. But however much I was told not to do that, it was my instinct, that's what I should do. And I think as well as like you can get told like tactics and things by other people, but you have to learn from experience yourself. And I think making like mistakes I've made in the past, I kind of like learned from that and I knew how to kind of execute a better race this year. But yeah, along with having like Joe and Gavin there to like explain the whole thing and explain like what I need to do and like how best to go about things to like conserve energy for the latter parts of the race. I think yeah, having their experience, they know how to come through a field and to come like kind of win in a way which you can have a strong dominance without like breaking yourself as well as everyone else.
Yeah, because that is your style, right? Flat out from the gun, or at least it has been. So I presume you know your Eurocross victory looked a lot more measured. Yes, you went off hard and took the race on, but you kind of always had something there and you kind of surged through that middle section of the course as well. So you're learning to kind of, I guess, run to feel a little bit more. Is that right?
Yeah, that's kind of like the way I wanted to go about it. I've like sometimes I run a bit scared. I'm like, oh, like they're going to catch me, whatever. I just need to go. But yeah, I'm learning that that's not the way. And I do have the ability to run fast towards the end, and like I can get away from other people even if I don't like run away from them at the start, kind of thing. And I think that's something I'm just going to learn more and more with experience and things. But yeah, definitely going into like the track season, I need to like experiment with more kind of like tactical ways of going about things. But yeah, I think that'll come with more experience.
I think that's lessons like just a lot of juniors in general learn, don't they? Because junior races, typically it is, you know, the positions that are after a K or so tends to stay that way throughout the rest of the race. But as you get older, competition gets harder and you have to win races in different ways. So it's good that you're learning that now as opposed to when you're in your early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and listening to you talk about racing, then it reminds me of actually of Jake Smith, who's obviously coached by Gavin and Joe as well. Is there anything you've learned off him? Because he's very much someone who kind of likes it hard from the start and enjoys kind of making it hard for other athletes around him.
Yeah, no, it's actually really nice. He lives literally like 5 minutes away from me, so we try and meet up runs when we can. Obviously, he's away all the time, but I kind of learned what he always tells me his horror stories, so I've learned what not to do. Like since he's been injured. But definitely, like training with him is like another level. You're kind of like you thought you were good, but then you just get humbled straight away. Yeah. So since he's like started getting back to fitness, it's really nice to be around someone else who's pushing themselves hard in sessions. And then yeah, able to kind of like run chill on the other days. So we run together when we can. And yeah, definitely, it shows like that these Brits can be up there with like kind of the Africans. And all the other like be on the same level as everyone else in the world. So that's nice to see, and yeah, hopefully fingers crossed he'll get back to full fitness soon, and yeah, we can go to the Olympics together.
Do you look at the professional running lifestyle that Jake has and that's exactly what you want to do?
Yeah, I think so. I mean saying it now is quite a big move, but I think eventually, like that's somewhere I want to be, and even like now, like in the holidays, I kind of live my life in kind of like a professional runner kind of way. Like I run and then don't really do much the rest of the day, and then run again, kind of thing. And that's kind of like what I imagine it's like. Obviously, there's a lot more stresses around things and like kind of pressure to perform and stuff. But I think that's something I want to do in the future, and kind of like yeah, being around Jake and other professional athletes kind of like made me think, actually, yeah, that is something I want to do.
And just quickly, how have your parents responded to you excelling in running? Because at the start, it sounds like they didn't know much about running either. Hence why you were just kind of running once or twice a week, running with your sister and park runs and whatnot. So how have they kind of bought into the sport as well? Are they running obsessed now, or you know, what's your relationship like with them about running?
I think they're still quite like naive about the whole situation, and they're kind of still a bit unsure about what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Devon schools or whatever, and they're like, okay, what's that? And I have to explain everything. But it's good. I think they're like warming to it a bit more now. I mean, managed to get my dad to park run on Christmas Day, and then he ran on the Sunday after that as well. I was pretty impressed. So that's two runs in a week, which was like, yeah, impressive for him. But I think like it's a whole new situation, and they're kind of, I think, a bit more amazed about what I'm doing than interested as much. But I think it's good for them to like be like learning about something different, because obviously it's a completely new environment that they were not used to at all.
That sounds nice for you as well, though, because it's one thing having pressure when you go to these events, but I feel like, or it sounds like you don't have any pressure at home to perform, which I think must be really nice
I'm really
for yourself.
thankful. Yeah. Really thankful for that, because there's so many parents that go to the track like on a club night and they're just parents, they're yelling at their kids, and I'm like, my parents would never do that. Like I'll come home and say I had a bad session, they'll be like, oh, it's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, definitely sounds really good. Well, look, Ennis, just before we finish, then, what's kind of on the menu for the next few months, then, like in terms of kind of your season, where you're going to be racing, and what are kind of the goals in just like kind of the next 3 to 6 months, if you like?
Yeah, so I think just finishing off the cross country season, really, the like national cross, and then a few cross challenge races as well. I'm going to try and get indoors, hopefully go to the UK indoors, the national, and yeah, try and run a bit quick, because I know I've got something quick in my legs, but I just need to get it out there. So we'll see what happens there. And then obviously World Cross is at the end of March. We're still umming and ahhing about that, but we'll see what happens. And then yeah, going into the summer, hopefully World Under-20s. Yeah, that's the big one, really. I don't know how that's going to go, but that's the aim.
Which,
brilliant.
You must already have the qualifying standards for that over the 3K from last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be fair.
No worries. Yeah, I think 8:59 would definitely be inside that qualifying time.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, brilliant. Well, Ennis, it's been great to have you on. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Ennis.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, and that was Ines FitzGerald there talking us through kind of her career so far. It's been quite a short one from sort of slogging out some park runs every week to now being a European champion in the under-20 age group in cross country, but definitely one that we're excited to see in the future. Look, that PB of 8:59 over 3,000 meters is one that it cannot be kind of not be scoffed at, particularly at that age. We see senior athletes breaking that 9-minute barrier for the first time, and that is a great performance kind of on the women's side. So Matt, what did you take from Ines' interview there?
I just like the kind of her story. We've seen it a few times. You'll have really good juniors, but they've been good all through the age groups, right? And she did really burst onto the scene, and we haven't really seen anyone like that in a little while. But also she is coping with the pressure. I mean, me and you were kind of briefly talking, I remember before, about Ines and her relationship with Gavin and Joe, and I think it's probably the best place for someone like her right now, because she's protected in a way. Like, she's clearly got a very good personal relationship with them. And I think sometimes when you have really good juniors, they may train in a big group at a big club, and they may not have, yes, they'll have a good relationship with their coach, but I think they start to feel threatened if other athletes, start to come up on their shoulder, start to go past them. And then as a kid, as a teenager, you have to deal with that. And I think that's quite a difficult, and they typically you tend to deal with it negatively, don't you? You say, oh, I'm no good anymore, I'm losing fitness. I mean, I'm just speaking of someone who's been in a group myself and been an English school champion a long time ago. And like, it's a tough position to be in, but I think given her setup, it's probably the best place for her. That she's still going to get the personal attention, the personal care, and be looked after, and she can plan. I mean, we were she was getting a lot of stick for not going to the World Cross and stuff, and even the Euro Juniors in the summer. But when you actually break it down, she was like 16 at the time. So it like has that happened for the best, and was that a good decision by one, her, and two, to the coaches? I mean, Gavin and Joe don't seem to be too fussed about it. She's got plenty of years left, and you would maybe just be forcing it a little bit if she was to go to those competitions. So, yes, she got stick because of the reasons and the fact that, oh my God, how could anyone ever turn down a GB vest? But I actually think career-wise, it was probably a good move because it has kept her hungry. I mean, she's still, she wants to go to the World Juniors this year. She wants to go win Euro Juniors at some point, and and World Cross as well. So still plenty of opportunity for her. So I do feel like there, in the environment she's in, she can be managed quite well. And I feel like sometimes when you're a really good 17-year-old, yes, you've got a coach, but you're surrounded in a massive group, and it can be tough. A lot of stuff happens and you're kind of on your own. You feel like you can't talk to anyone as such.
Yeah, 100%. And I think not taking anything away from these kind of hubs like your Birminghams, your Leeds, etc. But I think definitely there is a place for these kind of small pockets of kind of high level training opportunities, like it seems Ines has. You mentioned obviously Gavin and Joe coaching her there. Like it must be brilliant for her. And I think definitely athletes should consider kind of the benefits of both, because I think we see athletes coming through now and it's like, okay, well, I need to go to Birmingham or Leeds or Loughborough, whatever it is. Obviously, Ines said herself that she's considering kind of those options for university. And of course, that's fine. But I think just looking at different opportunities, I think there's always like many ways to kind of get to the top, and you don't have to just surround yourself with the best other kind of junior athletes in the country to be doing well. Because yes, Ines is only kind of achieving on the under 20 level in terms of kind of her medals and things like that, but in terms of times, she's already achieving times that are very good for a senior athlete
World
anyway.
class.
So
Yeah. I think in these hubs, you're hot until you're not, right? In these massive groups, you look at, let's take a university setup, for example. That person at the front of the group ripping it up. That's who the coaches are fussing over. That's who everyone's kind of hyping up until their performances dip and they kind of get left. And they have to then negotiate slotting back into the group and not being the big dog. And then the attention goes to whoever's kind of at the front of the group and whoever's running well at that given time. And I think some people can deal with that, and I think some people struggle to deal with that. So yeah, there's definitely advantages to both. But I think it's nice to see that I think she's in good hands. To be honest, but she obviously did say she is looking to go to university. She is looking to go to Loughborough or Birmingham or wherever she chooses to go in the UK. And I think that will be really interesting to see how that plays out, putting yourself, because she's running 59, but there are women who are based up at Loughborough and Birmingham who are around that mark anyway. That should be, let's think Izzy Fry, Alex Millard. Yes, they're not at the university, but it's women she can train with and kind of how she copes with that. Going from an environment where she's, there's a lot of care for her basically into being lumped in, and you're kind of on your own, aren't you? So that'll be interesting. But Lum, for a 17-year-old, she's really well, media trained as well, and a great talker, and has a lot's gone on in the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was a kind of super mature interview for an athlete at that age, because I think we're always on the podcast, we're always aware that like you speak to junior athletes that sometimes kind of might be the first podcast or whatever it is. But I thought Ines was spoke really well about kind of how she's navigated the sport, and it's a really interesting listen. I hope you guys agree too. On to kind of what's to come then, Matt, in terms of races in the next few weeks and months.
So, I mean, as you'll be listening on this Sunday is the Sheffield Indoor BMC Grand Prix. So we won't preview that too much because by the time you listen, it would have happened. You would have seen the results. But practically, I think all eyes on the 3K. Really, we got a good 3K on both the men's and women's side. But Lum, I just think the Sheffield Indoor BMC, I think it's going to be one in low 750, like it is every year, and that will be that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we almost say that in a way like, oh, that's disappointing, but at the same time, like people do have to open up somewhere, and it has to be sort of we're never gonna, I don't know, you're never gonna like get to Sheffield Indoor BMC and we're just like, right, every guy in the UK or every girl in the UK is ready to just run lightning quick.
No. No,
So
that's never gonna happen. That's what I'm saying. Like I think we're gonna get what we always get, which is a low 750. I think if we get anything quicker, that would be amazing. What we got let's just have a quick scan at that start list. We've got the Wheeler brothers in there, Pierce Copeland's in there, Tom Keane, James Murray, James Young. We've got some serious 1500 boys in this race. Ben Reynolds, excited to see what he can do actually. Bit of a super talent. But on the women's 1500. Georgia Bell, Georgie Hartigan, and Abby Ives as well. So there's three big names in that 1500. That's being paced at 65s. They run around about that 4:05 mark. That would be quite serious. I need to double check what the world indoor qualifying time is for the women. I think it is around about that mark. So
yeah, it must be.
Maybe they're trying to, tick off that standard early doors or just get a good run out. So yeah, that's the Sheffield BMC Indoor Grand Prix. Obviously, there's a few 800s and whatnot as well. What else have we got coming up, Lum? Dubai Marathon. The only reason I mentioned that, decent prize money, 80 grand for the winner, which is more than a London Marathon. So interesting. That's going to be the same weekend. County cross country as well. So everyone will be, God, I don't know about you, but some of these counties are going to be underwater. So we might have more cancelled cross country races this weekend. So I'll be interested to see how that evolves. Obviously, that has not gone down well with the old school running world. Cancelled cross country races. They're acting like it should never happen.
I kind of agree with them in a way.
I don't know.
I think it's got to be pretty bad.
Like,
to cancel it.
I don't know. Like, I've done a few. I actually did my Berkshire cancelled their county champs pre-Christmas, but I did the county champs there last year, and it was like complete opposite end of spectrum. It was frozen like solid, and we were running around like Farmersfield, like massive tractor, tracks. And they were just rock solid. And honestly, it was like one of the worst experiences of my life. I was like breaking my ankle every time I was running on it. And like, I don't know, like if it's flooded and there's massive puddles that you have to run, like huge puddles, freezing cold. Maybe I'm being soft, but I just feel like that's not really go do a Tough Mudder or something, like if you want to run through that sort of thing. Like there is a limit, I think. And again, like the poor people organizing, like their hands are tied, they have to meet certain standards, and God forbid if anything happened, like it's fine for those who want to get stuck in.
It's only the
if
safety
anything happened to a kid, exactly. So, and this is the world we live in, unfortunately. But yeah, county cross country champs, and then that's about it this week. So I think all eyes will be on the indoors and people out in Flagstaff. I'll just give a quick message out, if you don't mind, that going to be hosting a performance running camp for 13 to 17-year-olds in April, in that Easter week, 9th to 11th of April, calling it junior to senior. And me and a good friend of mine, Dan Studley, we wanted to set this camp up to basically just help kids negotiate their late teens to early 20s. And I think one of the biggest things that we found, and we've spoke about this as well, Lum, is that people they fuss over the training so much, how to get faster, but everyone naively doesn't account for the actual, I guess, like the stuff which happens outside of running, which is going to affect your progression, your performance. And it is just like little things like planning for, how many good, I mean, we spoke to Inez, like prime example, good 17-year-old. She's now talking to brands, talking to sponsors, she's had to go down the route of getting an agent. And obviously for some kids, this is like, that's far, that's going to be a long way away. But it's knowing about these things and knowing kind of what to do, who to talk to, and also like building that kind of circle. Because I think what happens in junior sport is you have the athlete and you have the coach, no one else. And I think coaches and athletes need to be aware that you want to build a circle of people. You know, as you get older, yes, you're going to need to do S&C. You know, who's going to help you out with that? Yes, you might need to look into nutrition. Who's going to help you out to that? And actually building a team. Everyone we spoke to, and this was an idea that came to me because of everyone we spoke to on the podcast. It's not by chance they are in a position they are now, and the fact that they're elite. It's not by chance. Josh Kerr's career has been like, you know, planned out to the day, almost to the hour, to the minute. He's took steps in that career purposefully in order to be where he is now. Jake Whiteman, the same. And yes, these guys are world beaters, but I feel like a lot of people could have a bit of support and a leg up with stuff that's going to happen outside the sport, talk about social media, and also just general jobs in sport, things you can do to remain involved in the running world, because a lot of us really enjoy running and we want to be a part of it. And so exploring different capacities. So yeah, that's a long story short. The camp is obviously there's going to be lots of training sessions. We've got, can't confirm anything yet with the brand involved, but we are going to get a brand involved. So they're going to be able to test products, shoes, be educated on that as well. It's going to be a 3-day camp, full board, overnight accommodation, and yeah, we're going to look into S&C, nutrition, all that kind of stuff as well, but also careers in sport and actually planning, goal setting, and how you're going to get from maybe you're a 4:30, 1500-meter runner as an under 15 boy, how you're going to get from there to, you know, to running sub 340 by the time you're 22, 23, but also highlighting that you can have a long career in the sport. You can peak at 28, and if you're going to do that, you're probably going to be working. So what job are you going to get? What, you know, how are you going to plan to peak when you're 28 and be realistic? So I think that's the big thing. We want more people to stay involved in the sport and try and reduce dropout rates. So I've rambled a little bit there, but that's thought I'd mention that. And I'll be continuing to kind of push that on socials. And if you are interested in that camp, just drop us a message at Sunday Podcast, or drop me a DM on Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really important initiative, and Matt, I might even make an appearance, mightn't I, mate? Unless I
yeah, Lum is due to be involved in some capacity as well. So I'm looking forward to welcoming him to Oxfordshire. Oh, it's going to take place at Radley College in Oxfordshire, which is one of the best private schools in the country. All-weather track, state-of-the-art gym. It's got about 5 to 10K worth of trails actually like on site, so you don't have to leave the school grounds around pitches. They've got loads of woodland area as well. It's got a pool, pavilion, and yeah, overnight accommodation, full board and whatnot as well. So very much looking forward to that. But yeah, Lum, that wraps up this week, and yeah, we move on.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And again, thanks for those of you who kind of provided us feedback last week on the new format. Really appreciate it, and I'm glad some of you have enjoyed listening to that. If you've got any more kind of info you want to send us, as Matt said, just send us a message on Instagram or X, or info@sundaypodcast.com is the email address if you want to be a bit more formal. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you very soon.